No, that's his live view. The actual CTV is in one, which
Okay.
is, I'm gonna go ahead and start.
That's cool. I can, no, you need some hot and sour soup from a Chinese place.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. I've got
Oh,
bronchitis.
and it'll make you feel better.
I'm waiting on Steve to give me the okay. Okay, here we go.
And good morning, everyone. Meteorologist Steve Caparati here. Time to start ramping up the messaging with what is now Tropical Storm Francine as of 10 o'clock this morning. That is a brand new update from the National Hurricane Center. The hurricane hunters have been out there this morning and did find enough to give it the upgrade. So we're going to get into that, and we are facing what appears to be a significant hurricane threat for Louisiana. So we need to have that in mind, and we may not be much more than 48 hours away from landfall. So the window to get prepared is going to rapidly start shrinking. So please do keep that in mind. All right, let's walk through things. So here's the advisory as of 10 a.m. Maximum winds 50 miles per hour. Right now moving north-northwest at 5. Now the Hurricane Center still points out that the core isn't terribly well organized just yet, but well enough organized to get the upgrade to make this tropical storm Francine. So let's give you a look at the forecast track, which does show it moving northward and then turning more northeastward. There's certainly been more of an eastward trend on the potential landfall location from, say, what we were showing you 24 hours ago. So this point where I've paused now, this is 7 a.m. Wednesday morning, showing a Category 1 hurricane just offshore of Louisiana. And by the way, we'll come back to this, but if you can make it out in orange along our coast, as if we're to Grand Isle, the shades of blue, that is a tropical storm watch. And remember what that means. Hurricane watch means hurricane conditions possible within the next 48 hours. Tropical storm watch, tropical storm conditions possible within that window. All right, so landfall is shown by Wednesday evening. So right now, it looks most likely landfall would be Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Right now, the forecast does show it as a Category 1. I do want to point out there is some guidance that indicates the potential of this coming in a bit stronger. So I've started to ramp up the messaging this morning that we should all be preparing for the potential of a Category 2 hurricane. That's not out of the question. This gets really tricky with the intensity closer to landfall. We think over about the next 36 hours, conditions are generally going to be pretty favorable for development. And in the 10 a.m. discussion, the Hurricane Center even mentions that some of the products they look at for potential rapid intensification showing maybe an uptick in odds that that could happen, which is not something we want to see. But in the last 6 to 12 hours, maybe as this approaches the coast, there are indications that wind shear could start to increase pretty quickly. We're going to have an upper level trough moving in from the west that would tend to increase wind shear. These things are really difficult to forecast, though, and how quickly the storm feels that and reacts to that. So right now, no real weakening is shown at landfall, although it's possible, but there's a lot of uncertainty on that. So we need to have in our heads, not only is this forecast as a Category 1 at landfall, that Category 2 is certainly within the realm of possibility. Now, as I've been trying to emphasize, if there's any bit of good news here, you note that 7 p.m. Wednesday, Watch that by 12 hours later, potentially well up into Mississippi. So it is expected to be moving at a good clip. So at least the window of those most significant impacts, it's not going to be terribly prolonged. You know, I hate to get too much comparing storms, but for people who have been around here long, everybody remembers, for instance, Gustav, which was such a slow-moving storm, and we just had hours on hours upon hours of tropical storm force winds, and at least a window we had some hurricane force gusts. This one looks to be moving much more quickly than, for instance, a storm like Gustav. So that by Thursday morning, we're already starting to see conditions improve. And then from there, it continues farther inland. All right, so here's an updated look, and this is just coming in, so I wasn't sure if this was going to update or not, but it looks like it has. So these are the tropical storm and hurricane watches that are now in effect as of 10 a.m. So everybody in orange is under a hurricane watch. So that does include, Iberville Parish westward here through parts of Acadiana, Lafayette, Vermilion Parish, and down along the coast. Assumption here, locally you're included. West and East Baton Rouge, Ascension, Livingston, St. James, St. John the Baptist, Metro New Orleans, all under a tropical storm watch as it stands right now. Now, given the forecast track, we'll see how this plays out. It's not out of the question that some of these inland parishes at some point could get an upgrade to a hurricane watch or warning. We'll certainly keep you updated on that. But that's where we stand right now with the first round of watches that are in effect. We also do have a storm surge watch now in effect that runs all the way from High Island, Texas, over to the Mississippi-Alabama border. So remember, that's where there's the potential of life-threatening storm surge. Give me a minute. I've been scrambling here to get all this information with the advisory just coming out at 10 a.m. Let's see if I can get a look at the storm surge numbers. All right, here's what the first outlook for storm surge is from the National Hurricane Center. They're saying from Cameron to Port Fourchon, up to 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. That's significant, right? Vermilion Bay, also in that 5 to 10 foot range. Port Fourchon eastward to the mouth of the Mississippi River, 4 to 7 feet of surge. And then High Island, Texas, off to our west, High Island, Texas, over to Cameron, 3 to 5. I don't see numbers in here listed. Sometimes they'll kind of break out Lakes Pontchartrain and Maurepas. I don't see those broken out. So we'll have to come back to that point and see where those numbers may end up. But there's a first look at the storm surge potential. Here's the satellite, and no doubt about it, we're seeing quite the blossoming of convection storms, right, in the southwestern Gulf this morning. So it appears to be a system that's organizing, and when you see a blow up like that, it makes you a little bit concerned that we could see some significant strengthening. Doesn't always happen when you see a blow up like that, but it's something to watch for. Here's a look at the visible satellite this morning. We will zoom in a little bit closer, and hard to see a real good look at what's going on near the surface with so many storms blossoming near the budding setter at this point. But again, the hurricane hunters have been out there and found enough to give it the upgrade. Here's a look at the computer models now as of what is today, Monday morning, and as we advance this. So here we are Tuesday evening. You can see at that point, a little less than 36 hours from now, already starting to see that bend to the right. And that's been one of the changes here in the outlook. If you were with us over the weekend, that bend initially was forecast to happen a little later in time. So a lot of the guidance now showing that bend to the right a little bit sooner. And what we see here is most of the guidance plotted here shows the storm coming to witness on the worst side of the storm, much of our viewing area. So that's not a good track, right? There is some guidance that indicates it could end up farther east. And as we saw, this is not a storm coming in at Ida intensity, but as we saw with Ida a few years ago, the small shifts do make a pretty big difference when it comes to impacts. Livingston Parish eastward really got hit hard by Ida. EBR, we had significant impacts, but not as bad as we thought it would be because we had that little eastward shift. So those are the sorts of things now we're going to be tracking the next couple of days, those little fine details as we get closer to landfall. All right, here's what the GFS was showing. So pretty clearly there, a healthy hurricane making landfall. That's Wednesday afternoon. Where you see the shades of purple, those are hurricane force gusts. And so, again, you get this general idea. If the eye comes in west of Baton Rouge, we're more subject to some of the strongest winds, potentially impacting Metro Baton Rouge and a good chunk of our viewing area. The European is a touch farther west, but same general idea with the center coming in a little bit west of Baton Rouge. That would tend to maybe even hit Acadiana a little bit harder, but certainly not a great track for our area. And then I'm going to kind of walk you through here quickly the graph model. So we're going to pick it up Tuesday evening. This is 7:30. And as we advance the animation, here we are midnight headed into Wednesday. So what I want you to note is early Wednesday, we're probably still not doing bad here locally, although we are beginning to see hints of some tropical storm force gusts. You see the shades of green. Those are tropical storm force gusts beginning to approach the coast, maybe as soon as overnight Tuesday into early Wednesday. And then as we advance this, the graph model, the latest run of the graph did come in a bit quicker. So one of the main differences we're seeing in model guidance right now are some timing differences. So that's something to be resolved too. But with that, by Wednesday morning daybreak, it already has tropical storm force winds on the coast and starting to move inland in spots, and has hurricane force winds here in purple near the coast. So we'll pause this again. It's got landfall by lunchtime on Wednesday, which again is a bit quicker than much of our guidance. But, this is also, I do need to point out, so among the more aggressive model runs, but it shows tropical storm force winds overspreading most of our area and most of South Louisiana under that scenario. Might be a little aggressive, but something to watch. And then here's your area of hurricane force gusts. So it's got the center there near Vermilion Bay and south of Lafayette around lunchtime on Wednesday. Shows it moving inland, again on a track just west of Baton Rouge, and you see the potential that exists there. If something like that plays out, then you're looking at that possibility of hurricane force gusts into the metro area. And of course, if we do get into hurricane force gusts, we're talking about increased potential for not only power outages, but the significant power outages. So that's a concern, right? So that's one of the things we have to watch. That's 3 o'clock Wednesday. And as we advance this, now we're on to 7 o'clock Wednesday evening, still seeing tropical storm force winds across a good chunk of the area. And then you'll note by midnight, it's already starting to show most of the worst weather starting to lift out. So that's a key point, too, that I made before. Those impacts are going to be quick hitting. I don't quite think the 10 a.m. advisory is updated yet on this graphic, but as of the previous advisory, it was showing a 50-50 chance of sustained tropical storm force winds into Baton Rouge, about a 70% chance Lafayette, closer to 60% Morgan City. So you get the idea. Increasing probabilities that we get sustained tropical storm force winds into the area. And then as we look at the rain numbers, these have come up a bit since yesterday, largely because the track trended a little bit closer to us. So now what you see in the Weather Prediction Center outlook is area average totals anywhere from 4 to up to 10 inches. Those are average totals. Would almost certainly be locally higher in spots where you get some of the heavier rain bands developing. So there is going to be a flood threat here at the track, and that's something we'll keep an eye on as well. The Weather Prediction Center highlighting that, already posting a 3 out of 4 moderate risk of flooding coming up on Wednesday, and that is area-wide. Now, when it comes to that flood threat, this is a point I've also been emphasizing because I've gotten the question multiple times. Not seeing anything of a 2016 magnitude, largely because we see the storm moving along at a good clip, which helps. That doesn't mean we couldn't still see flooding, just not anything like that magnitude, okay? But we need to pay attention to that threat. All right, so those are some of the key points. It is 10:23. I was initially going to do this around 10:30. I wanted to get a few more graphics together, but the East Baton Rouge Mayor's Office for the Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness has scheduled a 10:30 news conference, which we're going to be streaming live. So I wanted to wrap this up before that starts. Real quickly, we've got a minute or two. I will try to take a peek here on Facebook, see if there's any questions I can answer for you guys before we wrap this up. Key message, though. You need to be wrapping up hurricane preparations really today. Tomorrow we'll start to see some rain moving in. Theoretically and technically, you still have some time tomorrow, but it would be best to get your hurricane preparations done today. And then Wednesday is when we expect the most significant.
I didn't hear what he said. I was supposed to be watching.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, let's just see.
I figured he'd talk a minute. So.
Who's talking?
It's Dr. Steve. We're live with Dr. Steve.
Bear with me, guys, as
on the app and
I'm just
Facebook.
peeking to see if there are
I'm gonna switch to the
any questions.
when that comes up.
I see a comment or two about the sound being muffled, so apologies if that's the case. Not sure why. This is we've done a number of these updates recently where everything seemed to work okay.
All right, I'll catch up with you after this.
Stacy.
One other thing I'll point out is we don't have a flood watch technically posted yet from the Weather Service, but that's only a matter of time. Kristen asked, any possibility of Cat 2? Yes. Kind of mentioned that at the beginning. Right now, the official forecast is Cat 1, but I think it's maybe a better and safer thing for us to prepare for that potential of a Cat 2. Tornado risk, yes. That's primarily Wednesday night. Storm Prediction Center right now has posted a 1 out of 5 marginal risk of severe weather on Wednesday to cover that threat. All right, gang, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. As I said, coming up at 10:30, the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness here in Baton Rouge holding a press conference. So be sure to watch that. For the parents, I would expect some school closures to start getting announced. At minimum, I would think Wednesday, Thursday are in play. If there's nothing official, just stay with us for those announcements. But keep in mind that very real chance of that coming. Otherwise, Jeff Morrow is going to be on air at noon and 4 today. I'll be on at 5, 6, and 10 tonight. We will have continuous updates on social media, on digital, and on air, of course, as this threat unfolds. But get ready for it. Looks like a hurricane threat headed to Louisiana with primary impacts Wednesday into Wednesday night.